working on a commission, and I've kind of blocked her all in, and I've kind of blocked in the hands. This is the very first rough in, probably just really quick. You can see I'm almost using only like 4 colors here, just thinking of light and dark values. You can still see the underpainting here, 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 and here. So I kind of want to bring this forward and start painting and getting some of the darks in first. And then thinking also, which is really important for you, is this idea of resting tension lines, which we'll do on the knuckles through here, around the side, thinking about forming the hand rather than just blocking in colors. We want to think about the actual form of how these bones are and how skin wraps around tendons, which stretch, and how they move perpendicularly against those tendons. First, we're going to oil out a soft brush right here. Just going to put in a little bit of the Galkid. And I blocked these in probably about a week ago. And just kind of bring back the luster of the paint. Just a very thin coat of Alkyd over the surface here, just to prep the surface for accepting the paint. Now coming in, putting a little bit of medium down and a little bit of stand oil. I'm going to think about what's going on in this area right here, the lights and the darks, but mostly this dark that pulls through. So seeing it gets kind of towards a burnt sienna with a little bit of brilliant pink because it's got a lot of chroma. Let's see how that is. And so when I put my strokes in, I'm going to knit the form. And what I mean by that is I'm using a Kolinsky sable brush that I can use to knit my dark into place. And overpainting my dark into the halftone here, which kind of turns a little bit of green and gray. See how that's happening, it's pretty nice. But I'm also seeing where this warm dark can pull into this under plane. This is a top plane. This will be the under plane of how the hand turns, the finger turns into this area. So we want to think about the form of the hand. It's really important to do that. And think about the light side as well. So when we go towards the light side now, seeing more yellow, it's a little bit more neutral, a little bit towards the King's Blue into my mix, because it's a little colder on that side. And so I'm starting in on the far side and thinking about how this is turning over that form. So I'm kind of focused on this finger right here just to demonstrate for you guys, to demonstrate for you how this comes around. I say you guys too much. I apologize. This gets a little darker and greener through here. And so pulling a little bit of Terravert Green Cool in with the pink to kind of cool that off a little bit, but also darken the value. See how the value gets a little darker in there? And again, just hatching that in. And what's really great is that we can see these resting tension lines on the skin to be able to replicate those in our painting. Now, this is an underplane that's way too light through here. Again, this is the light side of the finger. Actually, the middle part of the finger is catching the most light. Far side, halftone, light, halftone, shadow on this finger. It's basically kind of a cylinder, like a more organic cylinder. And I'm moving more towards a little bit of the red umber. And I still want some of that pink to kind of, that brilliant pink, which is right up here from Michael Harding, to really push that value. Now I put that in there. I notice it's a little too dark, so you guys can hopefully hear my thought process as I go about it. I'll tell you guys when something is too dark or too light. That's kind of my, see it moves more towards a little bit towards orange, putting in a cad orange into that mix. Thinking about a dark that has some chroma to it, some intensity. And so, yeah, that looks about right. So hatching that into place through here. not afraid to go over the line into the other finger, because I'm thinking about overall senses of light and dark chunks of value, rather than filling an area in and just stopping. So I still want some of the color that's underneath to come through, and not just stopping at the border of a value or form. This gets a little greener as it turns, kind of hatch in that little edge of cool, a little bit more green. I'm squinting a lot at the reference right now to see how dark or light this is, and it is definitely a little bit darker through here than what I have. It's all comparison, light or dark. Now this is all just the underpainting coming through on this finger. Same here and here, so I kind of just left my lights the way they are, even though they're not as light as that. A little bit more of that orange. I'm going to think about this far side here and how this is going to pull forward into our light. We're going to paint over top of the light right now, just to knock those lights back. Thinking about that green through here, this kind of green-gray. And how that pulls forward. Now, what we want to think about here is, so we have this area right here, which is our knuckle, right? So what's interesting about the bone here is that, so imagine that it's got a movement like this. The bone thins out in the middle and then fattens up, gets wider as it gets to a joint, right? And then it kind of pulls in and around right there when it connects to the other bone. And so there's a chunkiness, a fatterness to our knuckles, obviously. And then it tapers, and then it gets fat again as it moves, as our bones connect. One bone connected to another bone. Now there's tendons that run vertically or just along the distance of the bone, right? These tendons. And what resting tension lines do within the face and on the hands are pretty drastic, so I use them as an example a lot, is that I'm going to mix up some light here. You want to think about how the turning of our knuckles, the lights, and the wrinkles, resting tension lines I call them, wrap around and they go perpendicular to the tendon. And that same thing in the face. The muscles within your face, the resting tension lines, your wrinkles, like in the orsis oculi, which is the kind of racetrack muscle that surrounds your eye, your orbital cavity. Your wrinkles go across that track. And so that's what we want to think about when we are, what I do with the knitting, with that sense of the resting tension lines and the forms of the hands. And I'm not aiming for every little nook and texture that I see, because the space in between my hatches within my paintings will just sort of by nature replicate the sense of turning, because they're already hatching. Which I don't really like that word hatch. I guess knitting. There are already lines of strokes that kind of follow that form. And that keeps the movement of the form grooved for the eye, so that people see your eye kind of follows the hatching strokes, these knitting strokes. And what's great is that they can cut across a hard edge to soften it, and you can subtly modulate if they're farther apart from one another, just like you can within a drawing. And so this is a very egg tempera method of painting, I've been told. And which makes sense because some of my favorite painters that paint this way would be Anagoni. And you can even see it in some of Ribera's work, where he hatched the curves of the forms. So really look up close at some Ribera's paintings of hands, if you can. One of my favorite painters, Ribera. He was a follower of Caravaggio and painted very Baroque subject matters, but he was Spanish instead of Italian. This comes up and over. Thinking about this, the movement, so all of my brushstrokes are on form. Thinking about this hand as a three-dimensional sculpture. Hatching over different areas. Seeing how the light is hitting this part of the knuckle first and then fading over that hilltop. This is a fun commission. I'm going to hope to share more process shots with you guys from this commission because I'm painting her hair right now and getting into some really cool colors within her shirt. Thinking about the form and how it's turning. Not about replicating every wrinkle. That's important. This gets a little darker through here, a little redder. A little redder through here as well. Not worried about the fingernails yet. Just overall sense of form. Pushing some of the values in colors and chroma. Pushing this chroma in his hand right here. Actually, I'm going to paint just a little bit of that nail is sticking out, so just kind of get that in there. And then a little bit of her thumb from the far side. As it's going to be, she's holding her glasses. I haven't painted the glasses in yet. I just start with the hands and I'm going to paint the glasses in probably later this week when I get the hands in a better place. This gets darker and greener undertones for my shadows and halftones. This is all halftone through here. So it could be a little darker. So mixing a little bit of the green and darkening it with a little bit of the red umber. Too dark. Put a little bit of flake white in there, kind of lighten it up just a little bit, and that looks great. Hatching that part. Hatching where the resting tension lines come in. This I haven't touched yet. This is going to be really beautiful. Through here, this finger, get that dark in there. But setting up this painting for the next day, knocking in the shadows and the sense of movement over the form of light, first and foremost. This gets a little redder through here. See some of the knuckle pull in like this. This is going to be so fun. I'm hoping to finish this commission in the next 2 weeks. And then I'm excited to share the painting with her family. The subject flew out to Albuquerque to be photographed for the piece. And so it's been a lot of fun getting to know them. Turning this direction. And softening up edges with essentially a dry brush as well. Helps us. this edge right through here, softens up. Right now I'm working wet into wet for the most part because this is all painted already. So pushing around, kind of sculpting the paint the way I want it to go around that sense of form. Thanks so much for watching. If you got something out of this video, hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps this channel to keep growing. I also want to give a huge thank you to everyone who's been supporting the channel over on Patreon and here on YouTube. Your comments, shares, and encouragement really keep this community going and growing. If you want to dive deeper with full-length lessons and behind-the-scenes stuff from my studio, check out the Patreon community with the link in the description. It's been amazing to connect with so many artists over there. And if you're interested in learning to draw and paint with me in person, I have an ongoing list of upcoming in-person workshops. Just scan the QR code you see on the screen for all the details. I'm now streaming a live drawing session every Wednesday morning where we'll study history, composition, and techniques behind some of my favorite works from art history. It all starts at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, right here on YouTube. So grab some coffee, bring your sketchbook, and come hang out with me. It's a fun, low-pressure way to draw together and dive deep into some really great art in real time. Thanks again for being part of this journey with me. Paint well, and I'll see you in the next video. Or even better, I'll see you guys live on Wednesday morning. Take care. Bye.